I say there are things better left unsolved.
Who knows what waits for us in nature's no man's land?
Impossible, unbelievable, fantastic. But I tell you, it could happen. It could happen. It could happen. It could happen.
Welcome to Glowburn, a podcast dedicated to the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game.
Welcome to Glowburn, a podcast about the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game and old-school post-apocalyptic adventuring. I'm Judge James.
And I'm Judge Forrest.
On tonight's episode, Judge Forrest and I, along with you, the Glowburn community, share part 2 of our first impressions and questions about the newly released PDF of the Mutant Crawl Classics core rulebook. So, without further ado, let's head down in the shelter.
Let's go.
Down in the shelter.
Welcome to Down in the Shelter. On this part of Glowburn, we talk about what we're playing, what we're running with Dungeon Crawl Classics or Mutant Crawl Classics, or pretty much anything post-apocalyptic, and what we're doing in gaming right now and stuff that we're working on. So, Judge Forrest, what do you got going on?
Before we get into the meat of the subject of Down in the Shelter, I wanted to take a moment to talk and highlight a small happening, I guess, called Gamers versus Harvey. You know, we talk about funny disasters here all the time. We laugh about them, we joke about them, but sometimes those disasters are very real and very serious. And Hurricane Harvey hitting the Houston area is one of those many disasters that's been happening lately. And we wanted to give the opportunity to do something about it. Several podcasts are jumping in on this bandwagon, I guess, if you will. And we are pointing people to the Houston Food Bank to donate to their cause. And you can find them at www.houstonfoodbank.org/donate. When you're there, you'll have an opportunity to enter an organization name if you'd like to. If you would, please key in there as an organization name, #GamersVSHarvey, Gamers versus Harvey. So let's set aside our archaic alignments for a while, and let's become some healers.
That's awesome.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. There's almost too many disasters to handle at once, but we can do our small part. Let's see, as far as my own gaming goes, the DCC Morning Nights game with Doug Kovacs and others continues. We're having a great time trying to carve out our domain in the city of Cube, largely unsuccessfully, and that's kind of what makes the campaign fun. Really, we're just a bunch of bungling idiots. The copy on the back of the DCC rulebook, you know, we're not heroes, only cutthroats, reavers, you know, the whole shtick. That's us. We've managed to turn just about every gang in the city against us, and the player versus player action has become so routine that it's comical. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, but Alex Pericini plays a character he calls Cornholio. And
you know what? That's totally him. I see it.
And I'll tell you, we've tried more than once to like shove him out on the street when some evil knights are coming down the street and close the door behind him. And that's the kind of thing that happens all the time in that game. It's pretty fun. Well, for us. I don't know if it's fun for Alex, but it's fun for the rest of us. And my AD&D 2E Greyhawk campaign presses on. The party's deep in the heart of enemy territory in a prison within the city of Dorikar, the capital of Ayuz. And if that doesn't seem all that bad to you, then you pretty much don't know the world of Greyhawk. Because we're essentially as close to hell on Earth as possible, and in fact, hell is leaking into Earth. Things are pretty bad, but they're so bad that they're good. Last week, we killed off a Type 2 demon. We finished it off, me and the other party thief, of all things. A Type 2 demon, that's a big deal. And we had a pair of successful backstabs on successive rounds, which kill the thing, which is incredible, actually. And then the other thief and I faced off with what's called a Babao demon because our party mage failed his save against fear, and the lead fighter was killed by the previous demon. He was dead. We thought we were going to have a TPK with that previous one, and we luckily didn't. And our cleric and our backup fighter were both imprisoned and unavailable. So it was basically, again, me and the other thief taking on this other little bit lesser demon, but still very tough. So it's a good night to be a thief, a bad night to be a demon. I am finished with Killer of Giants for the American Survival Guide Kickstarter. It's coming in at just under 18,000 words, and the last section I just finished is the most goofy and crazy thing that I think I've ever written, honestly. And so we're going to use that as the starting off point for the Crawling Under a Broken Moon sessions that I'm going to be running at GameholeCon. Anyway, I'm looking forward to see how it plays out in playtesting, see what breaks, see what doesn't, but it's I guarantee it is going to be crazy over the top, just, well, Crawling Under a Broken Moon. Also, in post-apocalyptic news, I just read Cormac McCarthy's The Road. I had never read the book before. And I'll tell you, it is a heartbreaking novel, grim and grueling, not at all like MCC. You remember the scene in Mad Max Fury Road where they're traveling across those kind of gray wastes?
Yeah.
There's just like nothing there. And it's
on the stilts and stuff.
Yeah. Just take that and multiply it by 10 and you kind of get the tone of the book. It's super depressing.
Is it like the movie pretty much? Pretty close?
Yeah, it is. It is. But it's beautifully written. Cormac McCarthy is a wonderful author. I think the book is much more touching than the movie, the relationship between the father and the son, but it is really, really grim. Yeah, if you're sucking down antidepressants, you probably don't want to read this book at that time. So, anyway, that's what I've been doing. What about you, James?
I guess on to depressing fiction. So, not really. On the last Glowburn, it was the last one or the one before that? I can't remember. I can't remember. So I think I do want to point out for a second, not to like break, the fourth wall or anything, that we did record this a couple weeks ago and then we lost the recording.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, no, you know what? Together we take the blame of Judge Forrest. So I'm trying to think so for me, this is a different day, okay? But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, 1 to 3 Glowburns ago, I discussed a dystopian book club with my wife where I was going to read Ready Player One and she was going to read The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Well, I finished Ready Player One, and it is the opposite, I think, of The Road then, because that was awesome. It was full of like cool 80s stuff going on and cool arcade games from my childhood and just all sorts of great pop culture references. I had so much fun reading it, and my wife did not finish Handmaid's Tale, so I guess I'm still waiting. I don't think I'm going to be rushing to read The Road anytime soon.
No, don't.
I'm going to take a hard pass on that for right now and just wait maybe until I read something else uplifting, like On the Beach. There's an uplifting book.
There you go.
That's a great book for anyone who wants to read a post-apocalyptic tale that has no one living afterwards, right? So anyway, we've had lots of gaming in our house in the last month. I have lots of gaming in the month ahead. Like, my gaming schedule is nuts right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to sort of sit back and chill a little bit this week and next week. I ran a Disney-fied version of Prince Charming Reanimator by Daniel J. Bishop a couple Fridays back. It was an event for Lawful Good Gaming in support of a nonprofit group. We had a great time playing it, and hats off to Joan Troyer, who played an absolutely insidious and evil Pinocchio with a nose that was a vicious weapon that kept growing and causing more damage as it grew. So
I would have loved to have seen that.
The mechanic was that when it started out, her weapon was like a D3 in damage, like for a stab. And then every time she lied, we had to get a little bit longer and go up a die step. So when it broke a D12, she had to use 2 hands to hold it. And eventually, evil Pinocchio died, and someone else picked up the nose and were fighting with the nose.
They break it off.
He died before having his nose broken off. In the end, in true Disney fashion, Mickey Mouse, Phil from Hercules, Aladdin, Prince Charming, and Prince Henry Charming, not the other guy, and Lilo from Lilo and Stitch all jumped into a magic-looking glass, which was a portal to hell, to escape evil Prince Charming. So
That's nice.
it really does have all the heartwarming holiday feels. In celebration of Strotember, I got to play in Michael Bolam's game of Bride of the Black Manse. I've never played that adventure, and that was really fun. That was really creepy, too. I think that would have been a perfect Halloween module. If you're looking for something for Halloween, that's a great one to grab. It's got some spooky, horror feel to it, and some great things that happen based on time, like with actual time. The event is happening in like the real world. I love adventure mechanics like that. I love that something's going to happen. You can't just putz around. The game's going to end at some point.
Got to get off the couch and move.
Absolutely. And then finally switching things up, and this is more in the new school end, but last Friday, my family and I, a couple of friends, we picked up we started playing Numenera because there's like a big Kickstarter for that right now, and we got in the mood, since that was a game that sort of got my wife and kids to first start playing campaign style game. We started with old school gaming with D&D basic, but when the first campaign we ever had was like a 19 session long Numenera campaign. So we ran an adventure called Mulise, the Wayward Hamlet by my friend Mark Plord. And by the end of the game, there was some point, and I have it on Facebook on video, we were full out belting out Bohemian Rhapsody.
Awesome.
Just screaming it out, which, good timing, because I know today I was listening to the latest Appendix H episode of Spellburn, and on that episode they were discussing my letter that went into Spellburn about singing or music in games. And I know Judge Julian, I had to hit him up with a Tina Turner reference, because he was singing that. He sang Private Dancer today, Yeah,
I know.
So I loved it, Judge Julian. It was captivating.
All right, let's go and check out the Voices of the Ancient Ones.
Let's do it.
Voices of the Ancient Ones.
Voices of the Ancient Ones is where we hear from you, our listeners, via email or via the Google Plus community or other means of communication. And let's start off. We have a letter or an email from John Salyer. Do you want to go ahead and take that, James?
Sure. So this is from John Salyer, and he starts out with, "Hello, Glowburners. I really enjoy the podcast, especially the segment where you two make up your own creatures and artifacts. Excellent work. I am trying my hand at designing an adventure that I will be running at our local gaming convention. It will be a sort of escape from New York style scenario for Louisville, Kentucky. I was wondering if you guys have incorporated things from your hometowns or cities you are familiar with into your games. Thank you for doing what you do. Keep on glow burning." Well, thank you very much for the positive feedback. We really appreciate it. I've run adventures in both Philadelphia, which is where the Philly area is where I grew up, in Levittown, and then in Pittsburgh, which is where I live now. And most notably, back when I was GMing The Strange, I ran part of an adventure in a condo development near my old house in Levittown, featuring NPCs that I went to school with or met. And if I did this with people that I knew very well from there, it could have been kind of like campy or cheesy, because they've been like, well, I'm going to go mess around with Lori because I know her. We had played tennis together or something like that. None of the players knew any of these people, so it kind of helped me because I was able to come up with NPCs really fast.
Oh, yeah, with a given personality already.
Absolutely. I was able to just roll those in. And as part of the adventure took place, it was in a community, and I was just grabbing names from all over the place, and no one thought anything of it. The one downside was I had everyone's backstory so well done. They thought everyone had something to do with the adventure, because like, oh, that person sounds very fleshed out. We're going to interrogate him. And it's like, oh, crap. It was an investigative adventure. So they were supposed to be investigating.
Right.
Yeah, how about you, Judge Forrest?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks, John, for your letter and your compliments. Very kind of you. Yeah, absolutely. I've designed adventures and used adventures in the areas where I've lived. Now, just to, as full disclosure, I actually live in the area outlined in the very first Gamma World module, GW1, the Legion of Gold. And to be exact, I live in Encounter Area 12, the Creature of the Lake. If I went out my front door here and took a right turn, I would jump over my neighbor's fence and I would be there, literally, on the lake that is that encounter. I know when Gary Gygax wrote it, he fashioned the barony of Horn, in which it takes place after, Horn is Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And there are towns like Deerold, which is Deerfield, Wisconsin, and so on and so forth. And all the way up to Madison, where I live, where there is supposedly a gigantic amoeba living in our lake that kills everything. And having swam in those lakes a couple times, that might very well be the truth. So yeah, I can totally jive with the idea of taking your local area and applying it into a game. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, back in the day, back before we had the interwebs, we would often take legitimate real maps of areas and mark them up as our post-apocalyptic maps. So we would, I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, for example, for a while. Take a map of Omaha, and then you start shredding it up and marking it with a Sharpie, and you create a map out of the map, which is kind of cool because you can hand it to your players, and makes for a lot of verisimilitude. So anyway, yep, good stuff. Let's see. Our second note, I should say, comes from Andy Action. Andy says, in lieu of access to the eagerly anticipated MCC modules from Goodman Games, are there any, and this is backdated a little bit, I must say, are there any classic Gamma World, Rifts, Aftermath, etc. adventure scenarios that you have converted to MCC at your tables? Are there other components, maps, creatures, NPCs, etc. that you have repurposed from other sources for your MCC campaigns? Personally, I am incorporating elements from David A. Hargrave's Arduin Grimoire and Errol Otis's Necronomicon and Booty in the Beast for my current weekly MCC campaign. Culling these wild and gonzo early third-party publisher classics for ideas has been a blast so far. These, along with liberal usage of content from the stellar Crawling Under a Broken Moon and Crawljammer zines, have given me plenty of ideas, source material, and inspiration. Loving the show. Keep up the great work, gents. So thank you, Andy, for your comments and your praise. We appreciate that. I'm glad you mentioned Dave Hargrave's Arduin Grimoire. I think that's one of those lost classics that a lot of people nowadays don't even know ever existed. Do you know about those at all, James?
No.
Okay, so Arduin Grimoire was done by a guy named Dave Hargraves, 1977-81, and there were a series of zines that he produced, and they got some circulation. I used to own them, and stupid me, I gave them to a friend and never saw them again, and now the originals are worth a whole lot of money. But Arduin Grimoire was a high fantasy setting, but with a post-apocalyptic background to it. Kind of like Sword of Shannara, except more post-apocalyptic. So you could be a fighter with a laser gun, or a wizard with a vibro sword and this kind of stuff. So anyway, yeah, I actually use the Arduin Grimoire hit chart whenever I can, Andy. So there's that. And also, of course, the campaign that I've been running for MCC has been run before MCC came out, and so I used the quick start rules combined with first edition Gamma World. Let's see, I had a Rifts book in there somewhere, Rifts Biotech, and Metamorphosis Alpha, of course, and I kind of mishmashed all those together to create what I needed to. So there's a ton of material already existing out there. I will say, though, that the modules are starting to come out now, and they're looking pretty darn good. So you can mix and match, of course, all you want. There's all kinds of opportunities there, whether to take the quote-unquote gospel truth modules from Goodman Games or digging into the other third-party publishers, like you said.
I mean, the only thing I would add to this, and this again isn't that old school, but I don't know, it's 20 years. Is I plan on and have stolen some material already from the Alternity game system, so the late 90s, specifically the Dark Matter setting, which was sort of, it had a very X-Files feel to it. It was like government conspiracy, kind of all that fun stuff that was like in the late 90s, where if you could go on like Yahoo and search for conspiracy stuff and find really cool alien abduction videos that were grainy and it still felt real. Yep. Until nowadays, where it's just kind of campy.
It was like Alien Autopsy came out then, didn't it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. The Alien, you had that. You had, what was it? It was a little bit after Robert Stack in Unsolved Mysteries, right? That was
I remember that.
I was a little bit before this.
A little bit,
but I mean, I feel like there's a lot of stuff in Dark Matter, plus several of the Alternity books to begin with, that you could steal, borrow, bring over. There was an Alternity Gamma World
Yes,
as well,
there
which
was.
I don't. It's the only alternative book I don't own.
Mm-hmm.
So go figure. All right, so I'll take the DM Kojo email here because we got a DM Kojo email. So here we go. Greetings, glowers. As I write this, the first 4 MCC adventure modules have been released on PDF. They all look great, and I love that they bump up a level each time to scale with the campaign. Specifically, I wanted to call attention to some of the great interior artwork I am seeing in these modules. My top 5 of art from the first 4 MCC modules are, just like a drum roll, like... Number 5, in Hive of the Overmind, Chris Arneson has a cool piece on page 10 of an aardvark manimal, which is really cool. Number 4, in Warlords of Ataz, Stefan Pogue has a great full piece on page 11 of a tri-iPod that I really enjoy. Number 3, in A Fallen Star for All, on page 7, Jesse Moan has a very nice piece of a manimal attacking a human woman. Number 2, from Incursion of the Ultra Dimension, on page 19, there is a piece with some flying insect creatures. I am unsure of the artist as I don't see a signature on it, but it may either be Tom Galambos or Chad Searsketter. Number 1! My favorite piece in these modules so far is also from A Fallen Star for All. On the title page, Cliff Kurowski has an amazing spread of mutant bunnies descending on a party from a junk heap that I just love. I would love to hear some of your favorite MCC artwork so far. Glow on, DM Kojo. I feel like I need to say, and that has been DM Kojo's favorite art from all of the MCC adventures! I'm sorry, I have a cough and I'm tormenting you here.
I had to turn my microphone off for a second there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And I have one that I got today, because the only one I've had a chance to go through today, because as of today, there was a release, okay, of art, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Not art, I'm sorry, of adventures of art. I guess, and of art. Adventures are art,
both.
right? So I'm going to say that my favorite art piece, all right? First off, my favorite 2 pieces here. I'm going to go with 2, okay? I am going to say that the one that I'm going to go with today is the second page of the Apocalypse arc, and it's of the big... I don't know the adventure. I haven't read it yet. I just was going through it, and there's like a big mech on the first, like the interior page.
Yep.
And the interior art, or is Tom Galambos and Jesse Moan. I'm not sure which one this is. It's the same situation. It doesn't say who did it. And that's my favorite so far, is that I like that mech, primarily because... For some reason, some of the mech look here reminds me of some of the old BattleTech pictures.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of old BattleTech swag. So, I don't know. I think this would be... I'd love to throw some battle mechs into an adventure. And I have to also give a shout out. I really love the map. And Stefan Pogue did the map for this adventure. And I love the interior of the vehicles and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway. So, I like the map on that as well.
That's a fun adventure, too. Brendan LaSalle ran that for me back at GaryCon last year, and that was a lot of fun.
And if it's Brendan, it's going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Judge Forrest?
Well, I don't want to go too far into stuff. I'll list one. Frankly, in the future, we'd like to focus an episode on art, on the art of MCC, but that's for future state. But right now, I think my favorite piece has to go to Doug Kovac's cover for Blessings of the Vile Brotherhood, which just came out today on PDF. And I think... The reason I like it, there's a few reasons, but it's actually pretty different for a Doug piece. It's extremely surreal, and the color tones are Hieronymus Bosch, if I've ever seen them, and I love Bosch. I'm a huge Bosch fan. So it's got that blood red and these earthy tones, and I really like when Doug uses that palette. It's not the bright glowing green and some of the crazy purples that you see here and there. It's just this really kind of somber palette, but I think it fits. And the cover so there's a big circle in the middle with some kind of floating mutant guy with sword sticking out of him in the front, and a couple of mutants running away in horror from him. But what I really love is at the top of this portal, I guess, there are 3 really creepy looking faces. They look like old mutant men. One of them is wearing headphones. And I'm a metalhead, and the thing that it brought to mind for me was some of the artwork for the group Sun, SUNN. Really reminded me of that, and I really just like that groove. I just think it's really, really, really cool. This is the kind of the kind of artwork that you could sit there and listen to some doom metal and just stare at for hours. So anyway,
You're gonna listen to the doom metal for hours too?
oh yeah, oh yeah.
What kind of effect does that have on your system?
It actually gets a lot of gunk out of me. It's actually cathartic, very cathartic. It's good stuff. It's not like reading The Road. That is just plain depressing.
Maybe if you had read The Road listening to doom metal,
Oh gosh,
it would have been
yeah.
a different feel.
Yeah, I probably would have had to have been hospitalized after that. Anyway, so that's my favorite right now is the cover of Blessings of the Vile Brotherhood. I really, really, really love that cover. But again, like I said, at some future point, we'd like to really dig into the art because there's so much, and it is it's really different from the DCC art. One thing I noticed about the art in general is it's PG-13 R-rated. It's not the PG stuff that mostly shows in the DCC rulebook. I don't know if did you notice that at all, James?
I don't know if it was on the cusp of R rating or not. My only experience with old school games, their old school post-apocalyptic type games, was what I could say I had a bunch of was with Paranoia, which is not post-apocalyptic as much as it's just dystopian.
Yes.
And I had a lot of first edition Paranoia stuff. And I get some flashbacks to that as I go through. I think the art is super tight in like the art direction, the art design, not just like the art itself, which is wonderful. I mean, the art really is fantastic, but I mean, I for A Fallen Star for All, which is, I just pulled this open. Did Jim do the art direction on every adventure?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if there's as much love goes out to the art direction. And maybe I know a few art directors outside of just, knowing Jim. But, I mean, to pull the art together and say, this is how this should feel, I don't know how to do the job myself, but I just know that every piece of art I've seen so far fits like a glove.
Yeah.
And I think major kudos, major hats off for that, for getting that. All those feels are together, they're tight. You don't have a piece of, sometimes you get one of those modules or adventures you'll get. I remember, especially back in like the second edition days, you get an adventure where they're just putting an art piece as a filler in there that means not connected to the module or the source book, where it's just kind of tossed in.
Right.
And it almost jolts you away. It jolts you out of your mindset while you're reading the book. I have not had that happen with MCC one bit.
Well, and another thing too, the main artist, I know this because I game with Doug pretty much every week, every other week. I know that he and Stefan Pogue have been kibitzing a lot about just talking about the artwork between the two of the main artists, and that doesn't mean that they've necessarily been making sure everything correlates with each other, but they have been talking about it, and I think that opens up a kind of a creative space where you can use each other's energy, I guess, is a way to put it. And so that I know is happening. Doug's talked to me about that several times. So good stuff happening there.
The Great Disaster.
Go, 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 go!
Welcome to the Great Disaster. We're going to continue our ranting, raving, and exploration of our impressions and first questions. Actually, I guess they're second impressions and second questions after our last episode. But we're continuing on where we left off. So, Chapter 5, Archaic Alignments. I love Archaic Alignments, and I have loved them since Gamma World First Edition when they were Cryptic Alliances. I will say, though, that I don't see the absolute need for a 0 level to belong to an Archaic Alignment. I think you can run a campaign fine without it. Of course, you should be chummy with your buddies, unless you're doing player versus player, I suppose. But mostly you should be chummy with your buddies, but that doesn't require an Archaic Alignment. It's not necessary, absolutely, to a campaign. And in my own campaign, the proto campaign that I've run up to this point, we haven't had any Archaic Alignment. I take that back. We have one person who belongs to an Archaic Alignment, which is not in the MCC book. It's in my own campaign. But other than that, we have shied away from that. It become very optional. And in fact, I think Archaic Alignments, so far in my campaign at least, have been more reserved for the bad guys than for the good guys. What about you, Jim? James, what do you think, Jim? Mr. Kirk?
You can call me. I go by either one, so I'm very careful to only be James on here, so I do not like mess up with the official Judge Jim.
I'll call you Mr. Kirk.
There you go, Mr. Kirk is fine.
Mr. Tiberius Kirk. Okay.
James Tiberius Kirk.
James, what do you think about the Archaic Alignments chapter?
I'm already a fan of the whole concept of the Archaic Alignment. Now having no idea about how there was that version in the way it worked, cryptic. What did you call it? Cryptic allegiances.
Cryptic alliances.
Same thing. That thing. Before, I will say I have my own. I developed the Dolphin Inquisition. It was brought up here on the podcast before, and I was trying to think of what I was going to say about Archaic Alignments during this. And recently, I'm preparing to run an upcoming Planescape game that I'm reskinning for a different system. And I was reading through it, and I said, "Holy crap! Archaic Alignments are the factions from Planescape. It's Planescape factions. Each one.
Yeah.
So if those who remember Planescape from Second Edition D&D, beginning characters each belong to a faction, and the faction gave them a benefit, it gave them a disadvantage, a drawback, and then it sort of determined what their philosophy was in the planes.
Right.
So it's not quite the same because I don't think you can deal with a party of everyone belonging to different Archaic Alignments, but there's some similarities there. And I really liked how every single one of them had some special benefit. And I don't want to rules lawyer this, but from the balance perspective, the only thing I'll say is the Children of the Glow. I think judges need to think about that one before they allow a player to get that. The benefit for Seeker of the Glow is the members add +5 to all mutation check rolls or when gaining a new passive mutation or defect. So, not that I want to nerf something that's in the game. If your player characters earn this and really earn it, Saving Private Ryan, last scene, earn this, If that happens, by all means, give them that +5 to mutation check rolls. But unless they've done that, they shouldn't just willy-nilly be able to walk into Children of the Glow and get that bonus. Because the qualification is only that it's like-minded mutants, manimals, or plantians. And applicants must undergo a trial consisting of spending 1 week in a known radioactive area and surviving the experience, proving the devotion and piety of that individual's belief in the glow. So if they do that, it should be a matter of life and death. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that was in the first edition Gamma World, and it's not lacking in the MCC rulebook, but it's, I think, a little bit less emphasized, is that in the original Cryptic Alliances, you had groups that absolutely hated each other. And so if you belonged to a Cryptic Alliance and you went into the wrong area, it was like, the Crips walking into the Blood neighborhood. It's just bad things are going to happen. And I don't know that that was emphasized as much in the MCC rulebook. There's some hints to it here and there, but I don't recall anything really blatant about that. And that would be a decided disadvantage in some situations, I think, which would kind of balance that out.
All right. Well, I think that's what we have for Archaic Alignments. Let's move on to artificial intelligences. So what I'll say about AI is I think this is the section of the book where pure strain humans, your PSHs, does anyone have a nickname for them? Like psh? When I think of it in my head, I just think psh. Just like when I see LOL, I always think lol. Lol. Yep. So whenever I see PSH, I think psh. Here's our mutant, our manimal, and our psh, which I like that, actually. Anyway, I think that AI recognition is where pure strain humans have some place to shine, especially if judges offer these opportunities. I like how this section is part bestiary. It's got mechanics. I really, really, really like the personal assistant AI, tables. Like if you go through, you'll see that there is a chart where you can roll. So there's these personal assistants that can be in various, it's AI that's in various devices. Maybe you're dealing with it, in a wall mounted display, or maybe it's in that laser rifle you found. And essentially it's an intelligent weapon, but there's some science behind it. So it has an ability score for intelligence. it has an ego, and it has this really fun personal assistant AI real people persona.
Yeah.
So you roll a d16 on 3 columns, and you could have a laser sword that is protective, suave, and has panic attacks. You know, it's like, I'm really going to help you carve up that bad guy. Oh, I'm not now! Oh, crap, the bad guy's too strong! You know?
There are all kinds of possibilities on that list with those combinations.
Seriously.
I mean, good grief, fun-loving, pessimistic, that is narcoleptic. I mean, good grief. It basically makes every piece of hardware a character, essentially.
I was going to suggest for folks that maybe got MCG and are planning on incorporating more MCG into their DCC campaigns, or MCC into their, my acronyms are screwing me up here. Their MCC into their DCC campaigns. This would work pretty much for magical swords as well, you know? Like,
oh, yeah.
There's no reason why you couldn't have all of these in your magic swords. Just, you know, a little bit of reskinning doesn't hurt. I saw this as like Data getting his personality chip turned on too, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, I think there's the stereotype for robots of being just sort of, you know, robotic.
Robots, yeah.
As we had in the previous podcast episode, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But beyond the personal assistant AI, you could use it for any of the robots or AIs or whatever. Love this chart. This is a great chart.
Yeah, I agree. And it really adds a richness to this section that could be pretty clinical and sterile. I love that personality chart. And I just think overall, the section on artificial intelligence is really broad and much more broad than, say, first edition Gamma World, which, you know, for me to say that I like MCC's version better, that's like killing a sacred cow for me, but I think it's true. I really do love the breadth. It's way better than the old Gamma World first edition.
Yeah.
And the breadth and the depth. I mean, this chapter can really tweak some campaigns based just on what's given here in this chapter. It's really a great tool. And speaking of tools, Chapter 7, Artifacts of the Ancients. Let's talk about that for a second.
You know, I just noticed it starts out with "Hold my axe, I got this," and it's by the late Namkinnerby, the artifact hunter. And if you reverse Namkinnerby, just, you know what? I'm not going to spoil it. Go to page 164 and read that name forwards and backwards.
Oh, yeah, that's good stuff. All right. Chapter 7. In the few playtests I've been in, even the higher level ones, none of the pre-generated characters had artifacts outside of random junk. That kind of surprised me, actually. I played Apocalypse Arc, which is 3rd level, and I don't think any of us had any kind of artifacts, really. We were pretty much still Stone Age tools, but we're 3rd level, so we're just better with Stone Age tools. So I'm really curious to see, the chapter kind of implies that there's a ubiquity to artifacts, that there are a lot more out there. I think it says, by the very nature of this game, artifacts of the ancients are encountered and collected by the player characters much more frequently than equivalent DCC RPG characters will encounter potent magic items. And so I guess I haven't seen it yet. So I'd like to see it. I'd like to see how that plays out, you know, in individuals' campaigns. Do they, you know, are there going to be more technology heavy campaigns than others? Of course there are, but what does that mean in terms of encounter strength, in terms of game quote unquote balance? Not that I much care about that. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about that yet, because I love the artifacts. I love that section. You know, it's one of the things that sets it apart that makes it a post-apocalyptic game, right, is having the artifacts. But the question is how much and how frequently do characters encounter them in reality, really on the ground. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that yet.
Something I learned from playing Numenera, which is a game where every character has like an artifact in their hands, a minor artifact at any given time, is that GM you should consider throwing those out, or at least throwing opportunities to find those repeatedly if you want to have that be part of the game. So I know when I run, and so I had to run it on Friday, I had to get back to remembering that, have there be a lot of opportunities to find artifacts, to find ciphers and artifacts in Numenera. The players should always be uncovering them. And the few times I've run MCC, I have kind of used that same mantra. Now, they were adventures that I threw together, but even when I ran Museum at the End of Time, I still threw extra artifacts in just because. And I think because the artifacts, they're not just a device, they're also a potential trap.
Yeah.
I see artifacts as both, a magical item as well as a death machine. It's a friend and a foe at once.
Well, and I think they also spur character building.
Sure.
I think that's really a good spur for getting a person to role play.
And character deconstruction.
That too, especially with the artificial intelligence personality thing we were just talking about.
Yeah.
That can really add some depth to a character, having to interact with this thing who suddenly is getting snarky.
As a judge for MCC, I don't think you should be afraid of tossing out more artifacts than maybe you'd be comfortable with for magical items, for the reason that characters are built and designed around them, so the characters are designed to use these, especially the pure string human character classes. If you don't give them out, it's going to be a challenge. The book itself says, it may seem on the surface of things PCs in an MCC RPG game are more powerful than their DCC RPG counterparts. That's a quote from an MCC core book. And I don't know if I agree on all fronts, because unless you're giving out artifacts, they're not. They're not as powerful or more powerful than a DCC character if you've, been stingy on giving out the artifacts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like a warrior, a sentinel doesn't have a mighty deed.
Right.
Right? I mean, somebody brought that up on Facebook today, I believe it was. And they're like, well, why would I play a sentinel if he doesn't have a mighty deed? Well, as a pure strain human, you have access to all kinds of artifacts, and your artifact recognition or your AI recognition role is enhanced because you're a pure strain human. And
to the book's credit, I'd rather have a phaser rifle that has a disintegrate attack that does 5d6 damage.
Yep.
Or disintegrate DC 18 fortitude save to resist disintegration, which is like instant death, or 5d6 damage. So that's a tech level 4 item, complexity modifier 6. I'd rather have that than a deed die.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if my judge didn't let me find one, when I ran a couple of those adventures that were, Nothing's Free in Ocean World, where it was like Water World, and the parties that had a boat. And one of the gimmicks I had was this weird pirate ship that looked like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride pirate ship. It had like animatronics on it and stuff. And if they searched the compartment below deck, they would always find something. They had to make a luck roll. If they rolled good, they found an artifact or a power cell. If they rolled bad, there was an encounter. And sometimes the encounter was just a busted artifact that could explode and kill them.
Sure.
But it was always one or the other. So I always had them finding stuff. And then I noticed that as they got more stuff, sometimes they'd say, you know what? I have this thing that looks like a tube with a trigger on it. I don't feel comfortable enough trying it, so I'm going to hold that for later. And it ended up being a different kind of loot grab experience than I've experienced in DCC so far.
Right. No, that's good advice, I think, given, like you said, giving out more opportunities to the players to utilize the corrupted technology, but technology nonetheless.
Maybe a suggestion, if you don't know if you're giving enough out, because it's so easy to give things out and have player characters forget, or you forget you've given them out to player characters, would be to have them on cards and write them out on cards that like colorful cards that the players have to keep in front of their characters. So you can always see how many are out, how many are broken, how many exploded, and then just because the adventure is written a certain way, don't feel like you can't toss some more in there. Toss some more in there.
Yeah.
Give them extra laser rifles.
Yeah. I mean, what's the worst you have to do at that point? Throw in an extra robot to fight him?
There you go.
I mean, there you go. Problem solved. So chapter 8 is the bestiary AD. I'm a really big fan of the devils, the giant insect creatures. But I have to ask, what happens when there's an insectoid mutant that isn't a bad guy? I think that can make for some pretty interesting role playing because, you take your typecast and then you flip it on its head. I'm big on that in my games. And I really want to know what's beyond the radiation barrier to the north. It's incredibly intriguing to me. And there will be more on Devils later in the show that I'll be talking about.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
And I also I love the nod to the original Tron with the Bite-Mon.
Yes.
I think that was awesome. It was something that totally caught me sideways. I was not expecting that at all. And I read that and I was like, wait a minute, you're doing the Tron thing here. So anyway, that came as a really pleasant surprise. So I was just like, oh, yes. Very cool stuff.
All right, well, I'm going to toss in for the dragon-like Evox, and that is on page 199, and it is a gigantic genius-level mutant that's always encountered like a solitary beast, and a solitary entity, and it's a dragon. I mean, it's essentially a dragon. The rules do say that you should use the DCC RPG Dragon Generation rules, but they give you Rexon the Ravager to start with. And I will note that I love, this last time did the same thing, you know that? I started reading last time Forrest's notes, and tell you what, instead of me reading it, you read them. I like it too, so go ahead and you read that part.
Well, I just love the Russ Nicholson artwork for this. I love it, since we were talking about artwork earlier.
Yep.
Part of the reason that I love it so much is it's a nice amalgam of the first edition Gamma World creature, the Yexel. And, of course, they both begin with Y and have an X in there. I think that's not an accident. And it's a combination of the Yexel and the original illustration for the Jabberwocky in Through the Looking Glass, which is... So this is one of my favorite art pieces in the entire book, and maybe in the entire publication. I absolutely love that illustration.
I love how, just like Ron Burgundy from Anchorman, if it's in front of me, I'll just read it. So I don't even notice it says this is for a section. I'll just start reading. I love the Russ Nicholson artwork for this. I was going to keep going.
Well, it's true. You do love it. I mean...
No, I do like this art. I'm not... I don't like it as much as like some of the Dog Manimal arcs. I love Dog Manimal so much. Mm-hmm. But I do like it quite a bit. I will toss out there, since this is something that I think even in the update, it references going to the Dragon Generation rules in DCC. And if you don't happen to have the DCC core book, if you've come to this game from another game system and you don't have DCC, you can go to purplesorcerer.com and randomly generate a dragon and just name it an Evox, and you're done. That's it.
You can.
And it's free. It's free Dragon Generation.
Let me put in a plug, though. It is free, but once a year or so, Purple Sorcerer will do a little public fundraising, and I've contributed to that in the past, and man, what a great investment. I mean, really, the number of characters that I've generated using that program far outweighs any of the money that I put into the project. But anyway, so if you're inclined, when that comes around, please do contribute, because that's just awesome work, and I know it's hard work too to do the programming on the back end. So anyway, Purple Sorcerer deserves a little boost there from us.
Absolutely.
All right, Chapter 9, Patron AIs. In my MCC campaign, I'm calling it the newly minted MCC party, because the last one is only partially intact because of the advent of the rulebook, actually. But one of the shamans, or the shaman in this party, took ME10 as a patron and used the L.A.S.E.R. spell with Wild Abandon, and it was a lot of fun. It reminded me of why I love DCC. Just crazy, over the top fun. There's no balance at all, and frankly, we didn't care. We were having a good time, and even as my creatures were getting blasted by the laser spell, we were having a great time. But if I play a shaman myself, I'm going to go for Mangala all the way, because Mangala is just cool. It's like being a Herald of Galactus, except Galactus with 4 arms and riding a metal horse. I don't know. I love that. That's another piece of artwork that I really love. It's got the Kirby crackle, and if you know what that is, if you don't, go look it up. I love Mangala. I think he's probably my favorite of all of the patron AIs you can have. That's
the stuff that like comes off in the background where it like behind him, right?
Yeah, it looks like it's crackling, right? Sort of.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, it's from the old Jack Kirby comic books back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff, and I'm glad to see that the looks like Stefan stole directly from Galactus, which I am totally okay with, because anyway, I love Mangala. He's my hero.
Well, speaking of stealing, well, not really. First of all, I want to go back in time to when I when we interviewed Judge Jim, and I mentioned one of my questions was about other sources of inspiration for MCC that was maybe post 1983 or 84.
Right.
Because, I mean, there wasn't much in there. And I got sort of a commentary of, I don't know, I got the response from the two of you was pretty much like, this is a throwback to these games, and this is what was important, and you have, very much like, this is old school stuff, And imagine my surprise when I go to page 206 and I'm staring at Agent Smith from The Matrix.
Yep.
But not Agent Smith, it's Achroma, the ad hoc computer hierarchy with recursive optical memory AI. The most dispassionate and rational of all ancient AIs began very humbly before evolving into a superintelligence. If you read through it, I mean, it's Agent Smith.
Oh, yeah.
He's 10 feet tall, which is not Agent Smith, but he's like dark glasses. There can be lots of him.
Yeah.
The idea you could be a shaman, pretty much like doing the work of Agent Smith is, I mean, I want to be Hugo Weaving's homeboy, so I'm all for that. I think it's brilliant. I love it. In the art, that's Jim's art. It says on there, it says Wampler 14.
Yep.
I love how it's got the lines across it, so it looks like he's a computer program.
Right.
So I got a big kick out of this. A huge kick out of this.
It reminds me of the Paranoid artwork. Didn't they have some similar things with the lines across them?
Yeah, especially if you're looking at the computer itself. The screen. And page 207 has got, you can essentially summon, it's like someone's summoning a whole bunch of like Achromas that are attacking somebody, all doing like jump kicks. I mean, Holy crap, guys. Ear to ear grin when I first saw this.
All right, so let's see.
Optional rules.
Yeah, I am very curious to see. There's the Crossing the Multiverse section there. I'm very curious to see if those rules break some adventures like Against the Atomic Overlord from DCC. And I'm also curious to see how if you try to reskin the old AD&D module Expedition to the Barrier Peaks and reskin that to MCC, I'm curious to see if those rules break or they work or whatnot. That might actually be kind of fun for a one-shot. I might have to talk to my players about that. Reskinning Expedition to the Barrier Peaks and using these conversions and see how they work in the real world, because, that could be very cool stuff.
I was a little surprised at the artifact check bonus. It seems like clerics, thieves, wizards, and elves all have. I mean, that's on par with an MCC character. So I don't know if it's because it's easier to use it. I'm not sure why that would be. I mean, a wizard maybe has more, I don't know, magic technology in their brain. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't quite worked that out. It's a question for Judge Jim.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I agree. That seems like that could be a breaker right there, a game breaker if not used carefully. Now, of course, you have to be pretty high level for those things to have a huge appreciable effect.
Sure.
I mean, how many 10th level elves have you seen around, really, in DCC?
None.
None. I think Julian Burnick ran a 10th level adventure at one point that I recall hearing about, but other than that, you don't see that very often. But if you do, I suppose, if you're 10th level DCC, you paid the price, you can do just about anything you want to.
Well, let's step over to Appendix M here, then.
Yeah.
So, Appendix M, and we kind of covered this when we had the interview with Judge Jim, but as I've said before, I only knew of Planet of the Apes and Wizards here, which, as I've watched Wizards more, I actually have watched it again.
Whoa.
I liked it better the second time.
So it's grown on you like a mold.
I don't know, like a mold. I don't know if I'd say that far. I'd say it's grown on me like Eric Clapton grew on me, which meant I really didn't like it when I first listened to it because I was like 5 years old, and later I grew to appreciate it because it's Eric Clapton. So
sure,
there you go. That's I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. I thought it'd be a great place here to plug Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yes.
Because two of these books, Hero's Journey and the Dying Earth series, are both covered over on Sanctum Sanctorum, which I think also Commandy is as well, back around the same exact time that I think was the Kickstarter for MCC.
Yeah, Jim Wampler talked about that pretty extensively.
Yeah.
That was a big influence.
So I think you should definitely check out Sanctum Sanctorum to expand your Appendix M understanding, or just go ahead and read those books.
I absolutely. And one that the Sanctum has not covered, which I don't know that they will because it's not really Appendix N, it is just Appendix M.
Is Zardoz.
There's Zardoz, yes.
Was that it?
And there's no...
That wasn't
no,
that-
that's not it.
No.
That's not it. But there is no covering Zardoz, really.
There's not enough covering in Zardoz, okay?
If you cover too much of Sean Connery, it's not Zardoz anymore. But under the comics, Cobalt 60 by Von Bode and the late Von Bode, I might say, and his son Mark Bode is just really amazing stuff. If you took the movie Heavy Metal and mixed it with Wizards, really, you'd get somewhere close to Cobalt 60, but Cobalt 60 is funnier and a little bit more crazy, a little bit more gonzo, and I could very easily come up with a campaign using Cobalt 60. Absolutely easily. It wouldn't even be a problem at all, and I think it would be, man, that would be a lot of fun. So I might have to try that in the future. See, the next section is the Assault on the Sky High Tower. I am not reading this.
Nor am I.
I want somebody to run me through it. So call me selfish.
Same here.
I'm not going to read it until somebody runs me through it. So
Yeah, my friend Mark's running us through something middle of this month. I get to play. I've not played MCC yet.
okay.
So I get to play it, and I don't know if it's this year level or he's running one of the ones that's come out. So it wouldn't be Museum End of Time because Museum I've run already.
Reliquaries of the Ancient One.
There you go, that one.
Yep.
So one of those two he's running for me. So until I know, I'm not touching this.
Yeah, I've got my schedule for Gamehole Con done already, and nobody's running Assault on the Sky High Tower. So again, I'm going to wait till somebody else runs it for me. So maybe Gary Connor at some other point somebody will be willing to run it, and I'll jump in as a player and play my heart's content. All right. Overall impressions. I think, James, that we have our work cut out for us. The deeper I dig, the more questions I have, honestly. There are moments when I'm kind of struck with the brilliance of not just the MCC rules, but the DCC rules that they're based upon. It's a pretty well-oiled machine. There are a few burrs here and there, but it's really pretty well-oiled altogether. I still like the fact that I can take other materials, Gamma World, GURPS Biotech, Metamorphosis Alpha, blah, 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 and retcon them. I think the backbone is here for some easy reskinning and retconning of a lot of cool material, as was mentioned in our section on Voices of the Ancient Ones. I like that the skin and the meat hang loosely on the bones, so to speak. I can create my own replicant the way I want. Thank you very much.
So, I mean, I'm just mirroring a lot of what Judge Forrest said. I think this is a very solid game with great inspiration, great themes. I love the art and the art direction, and I love the mechanics. I love the mechanics are very familiar to DCC, but with MCC, there's twists that make it different without feeling arduous.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like the AI section was arduous, whereas I get to other computer sections for games like Alternity, and it's to a point where I don't want to run it. That I don't want to even deal with computers because it's such a pain in the butt.
It's tedious, yeah.
It is. So I love that. This is not a book that I think you should breeze through either. I think read through it quickly if you want to get the hang of the rules to begin with. But you're going to have to go and savor the book, explore it, and take it in. If you listen to a lot of the older episodes of Spellburn, like the original one, not original, it's all original, but you know, like the ones like prior to even Judge Jen joining, you know, the first 5 or 6, I think it was.
Yep.
You can hear them, they're learning the game themselves, and they're discovering the game. And there's a lot of those things that I think when it was brought up in the interview with Judge Jim, there's things here, people expect this to work right out of the box. It does, but it may not work the way you expect. So I'm going to mirror what Judge Jim said. Definitely try playing it before you mess with it, because the more I play it, the more I'm like, okay, that's why he did X. That's why he did Y. If you just look at it and say, this is supposed to be DCC with mutants, I don't think it is.
No.
I think it's much more than that. And you have to appreciate it for what it is. It's a similar rule set. It's a similar system, but it's not identical. And I'm glad it's not. I'm glad they didn't just reskin this whole thing and call it MCC. This is something new.
You got to come to it on its own terms.
Absolutely. All right, I think with that, it's time for the mutagenesis.
Mutagenesis.
Okay, well, it's time for our mutagenesis, and this is the section in Glowburn where we take something from media or other game systems and take a stab at converting it, for MCC RPG use or in any post-apocalyptic game you play. And rather than take from media or game systems, I'm going to just take game systems in general, and I got a rule called "You're in the game." So what if in the middle of your MCC campaign, you want to run a DCC RPG adventure? And sure, you can convert something on the fly, stop your campaign, run something else, and then try to come back to MCC. Or perhaps your players come across a new kind of artifact. It lets them play an NLRPG, a neural linked role-playing game. So I first thought about this back when I was reading Knights of the Dinner Table years ago, well over a decade ago, when there was an episode of Knights of the Dinner Table where they're playing Hackmaster, and on the holodeck of their space hack ship. So GM BA, well, his name's BA. He's like, hey, we're gonna play space hack, and the players are like, we don't want to play space hack. We want to play Hackmaster. And he's like, tough cookies, you're playing space hack. They find a ship and they get the holodeck to work, and they make him run their Hackmaster adventure on the holodeck. And when something goes wrong, they make him rewind it, and say, okay, we're gonna make that roll again. So not quite that same way, but this would work great with MCC. So I've done something similar. I was running Savage Worlds, East Texas University, and the player characters came across a cult. It was like a vampire witch, very akin to the cult leader in the Dark Dungeons, Jack Chick Tract.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they had to enter her game of Adventures in the Eastmark, the D&D retro clone.
Were you Blackleaf?
No, but
okay.
Blackleaf did die in the game.
Of course.
But again, different system. But back then, what I did was, which it was kind of jolting, was we were running Savage Worlds, and then we switched to like old school D&D. The cool thing here with having MCC and DCC together is we can just kind of like let the rules flow back and forth, nice and loose. So to do this, your MCC character needs to make a PCC, a player character. So there's PC and PCC. So each PC should have a PCC. And if it's a 0-level funnel, each PC should have 4 PCCs, Make sense? All right. So create a brand new character, though. Keep the original PC's personality, intelligence, and luck, and then use 3d6 in order for strength, agility, and stamina. Now, luck can be spent, just like in a regular MCC game, and anything stays gone. If the PC is playing a PC that regenerates luck, like a halfling or thief, just run it as normal, but the PCs can't regenerate luck value higher than that which they earned in the game. For instance, a shaman starts the DCC adventure he's playing through an NLRPG with a luck of 10, but they actually have a luck of 13 that was recently burned down. For the entirety of the DCC session, their max luck is 10. Even if they play a halfling or a thief in the NLRPG game they're playing, the max they can get is a 10. Mutations that boost intelligence or personality must be used prior to entering the NLRPG, but no other mutations can be used in the game. I looked at this real quick and didn't see any that would be game breaking, but if you could figure something else out, go for it. It's your game, man. Lucky sign remains the same, and the effects carry over to the new character, but hit points are re-rolled. Naturally, creative judges and players may allow artifacts to affect the game. And just like in The Matrix, if you die in the game, you can die in real life. Should the PCC perish in the DCC adventure, they must make an immediate fortitude saving throw at a DC of 12 plus the level of the adventure module, or they take damage equal to their current hit dice. So a 3rd level warrior takes 3d12 damage. A 4th level warrior takes 44 damage. I don't know how you can make a funnel work here with this. I mean, I'm open to suggestions. I think it's best for 1st level and above, but hey, it's your game. How about you, Judge Forrest? What do you got?
Incidentally, I like your idea. That's crazy enough. It just might work. I really do like that. I like games within games. That's kind of fun stuff. But for my mutagenesis, I was inspired by the reading the excellent online comic Kill 6 Billion Demons and kit bashing an idea from there with the devils in the MCC core rulebook, which I referred to earlier. I've always been pretty open about my love for biologically based technology, and I love to make things cost the players, sometimes dearly. So here I came up with what I call the devil's bargain. It's not an item, it's not a monster. It's what they call in the literary world a conceit. It's a thematic thing around which everything circles. And in this case, everything is your character. So among the border tribes that dwell near the northern radiation barrier of Terra AD, some of the more shadowy elements, those that live on the very edges of what little civilization exists, engage in a practice called devil swallows. A devil swallow is an act, sometimes ritualized in initiation rites, sometimes just done as a dare, in which a pure strain human, and only a pure strain human, swallows a live devil larva that has been dosed with a secret binding agent that keeps the devil alive in the throat of the one swallowing it. It gets worse. The devil swallower gains certain benefits from having the devil larva resident in their throat, depending on the type of the larva that's swallowed. So there are four kinds of devils in the book. So first you have the ant-man larva. This allows the swallower to communicate telepathically with one target in line of sight, whether or not the receiver is a telepath. There's the croachling larva, which allows the swallower to walk on walls or ceilings 5 times a day for up to 5 minutes each walk. There's a hopper larva, which allows the swallower to leap 20 feet and then land safely up to 3 times per day. And then a wooler larva, which allows the swallower a +2 to fortitude saves versus radiation. Now, for physiological reasons, only a pure strain human may be a devil swallower. Mutational dynamics just don't allow for a clear hosting or a clean hosting by the mutants. The binding agent is kept a strict secret, and its use is monitored by an archaic alignment devoted to keeping the secret at whatever the cost. And you can stick that anywhere in your campaign and run with it. Every devil's bargain has its payment, and those who enable devil swallowing will dodge any questions about side effects of the act. Characters who engage in devil swallowing suffer a -4 to their personality score so long as they have the devil in their throat, as their voice becomes raspy and strange, kind of like mine with my cold, and strange pulsating movements show in the throat at all times. I don't have that problem. Secretions from the devil in the throat are subconsciously repulsive to all around the devil swallower as well, hence the drop in the personality score. The devil may not be spontaneously ejected at will. It must be carefully extracted by a trained healer from the aforementioned archaic alignment, or it can be extracted the old-fashioned way, which kills the character instantly. That's why it's a devil's bargain, man. Only one larva may live in the throat at a time. Trying to swallow 2 larvae results in a battle between the 2 larvae, though the host is the ultimate loser in that fight every single stinking time. So, that's the devil larva and devil swallows.
Ew. I don't know. I have a thing about, like, stuff getting stuck in your throat, okay?
Uh-huh.
So, just the thought of it.
I know. My wife had to do the Heimlich on me one time. Seriously, I was choking, couldn't breathe, and she came up and popped me in the solar plexus, and man, that got that chicken out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was scary. It was very scary.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap this up. All right, so to wrap things up here on Glowburn tonight, we got some announcements to make. So first off, with all the crazy weather that there's been, I think on the lighter side is some fans of MCC and friends of the show have put together their own. It's funny how they both evolved, but there are 2 MCC RPG weather charts, and they came out on the same exact time.
That's because we mentioned it in the last episode.
Oh, okay, that makes.
I mentioned wanting to see something like that, and people responded.
That makes sense. I don't put 2 and 2 together. Remember, I can't remember which episode we did and which one we're on right now because time travel and technical problems. So Mark Plord, his Inspiration Strikes blog, which is inspstrikes.blogspot.com, so Insp Strikes, and we'll have that in the show notes. He has a random weather table, and Chuck Thorin has a MCC RPG Wasteland weather table as well at theymightbegazebos.com. So you can, and they'll both be linked. You can go to both of them. You can mix and match. I think you'll have a great time. I think your player characters will hate you. Your players will definitely hate you from this. So I know it's not DCC or MCC, but I do talk about it a lot because I'm friends with the folks over there, and it's on a podcast. I'm going to say something. Depending on when this airs, which hopefully is sooner than later, there is a Kickstarter right now for Numenera 2. And I have a lot of friends that cross-pollinate between DCC and the MCC world and the Cypher system. So if you haven't heard, Monty Cook Games is kickstarting an expansion of Numenera, and with the addition of some settlement building game rules. And why I'm bringing this up, because there's a lot of similarities I see between MCC and Numenera. I'm a fan of both. And, I have a blog post that lets you use zero-level occupations from Numenera. Like, I made up some that you can, for DCC, you could probably use them for MCC. Mm-hmm. The difference is MCC is several thousand years in the future, and Numenera is 1 billion years in the future, and there's ramifications for that. So, again, it's post-apocalyptic. I think we should be sharing some love for any post-apoc that's out there.
And upcoming is, in November, is GameholeCon. Registration is still open, I believe. As of a couple of weeks ago, there were really a mere handful of spots left open for DCC or MCC games. I know I'm running 2 sessions of Killer of Giants Adventure, and those are full up. And but you can't get on a waiting list. I'm not certain, again, if there are still openings on DCC or MCC games. But if not, there will be plenty of pickup games there. And there's lots of other games to play, of course, as well. Usually the pickup games happen at stupid o'clock. And half the people there are really drunk, so it's a lot of fun. I don't drink, so I have a great time. I just watch all the drunk people, It's kind of entertaining. Anyway, go to GameholeCon.com for information. And that's here in my hometown in Madison, Wisconsin. And also, it's not too early to look forward to GaryCon. Maybe you, yes, you, are thinking about running a post-apocalyptic soiree for your favorite post-Great Disaster RPG. Event submission is open now, so do it. Just do it. You know you want to, do it. And tell us what you'll be running. And also note that our patron AI of audio-visual engineering, Hector the Missile Cruz, will be attending GaryCon for the first time this year. So let's give him a great welcome and shower him in radioactive particles of love.
I will say that since we recorded the first attempt at this episode last time and this time, I found out I will not be able to go to GaryCon this year. So I am sad about it now. I imagine the closer we get, the more depressed I will be.
Judge Forrest is sad too.
Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, life.
Anyway, so if you'd like to contact us, we can find us on Twitter at Glowburn, or email us at glowburnpodcast@gmail.com. There's always the Google Plus Glowburn community, which is XXX strong as always. You can find me at ILive4crits, the number 4, or living4crits.com.
You can find me on Twitter at ForrestAguirre. That's ForrestAguirre. And also my blog is at forrestaguirre.blogspot.com. Special thanks and credits go to our shaman of intros, outros, and bumpers, Bob the Voice Brinkman, our patron AI of audio-visual engineering, Hector the Missile Cruz, our creative advisors, which is our Google Plus community, which is currently 291 strong, or XXX strong, depending on how you want to look at it.
XXX.
Our intro and outro song is by the group Chronox on their Voyager album. The song is called Juno. James, what do you got for us for heading out of here?
DCC and MCC, now you're playing with power.
And don't bug out, bug in with Devil Swallows, now in 4 devilishly delicious flavors.
Ew.
Ariel, Ukla, ride!
The blood of your enemy makes you stronger.
This has been a Hectophonic production. The gun is good, the gun is good, the